Keep moving. If you stop, you die. The words became a rhythm matching my stumbling footsteps through Grand Central Terminal, drowning out the Christmas carols, the laughter, the life happening all around me while mine bled out onto a white thermal shirt. My brush wouldn't grip the canvas. 3 tries before my trembling fingers finally steadied enough to apply the titanium white to the cracked oil painting. My hands clumsy with the kind of exhaustion that lives in your bones and refuses to leave. The restoration studio had been understaffed all semester, which meant everyone took extra shifts whether they wanted to or not. I wanted the money. Needed it, actually. With rent due in 3 days and my bank account showing numbers that made my stomach clench, I set down the brush and caught my reflection in the darkened studio window. Hollow eyes stared back at me. When had I started looking this hunted? I turned away before I could answer that question, hair pulled back in a ponytail that had started neat 8 hours ago. The white thermal shirt beneath my denim jacket hung loose on a frame that had dropped 10 pounds in the last month. I'd stopped eating regular meals 2 weeks ago. Easier to grab a bagel from the campus cafe and call it dinner. Cheaper to skip meals entirely when the alternative was asking my parents for help. Help meant questions. Questions meant explanations. Explanations meant admitting I'd witnessed a murder. I shouldered my backpack and headed for the exit, waving goodnight to Professor Chen in his glass-walled office. He'd been my advisor for 3 years, knew every student in the program by name, always had encouraging feedback. Tonight he glanced up with concern behind his wire-rimmed glasses. "Julie? You're pale. Are you feeling all right?" "Just tired. Long day." The lie came easily now. I'd been practicing it for 48 hours, ever since the warehouse. Ever since Dante Russo's laugh echoed in my ears while a man crumpled to the concrete. Outside, December wind cut through my thin jacket. I should have grabbed my heavier coat this morning, but I'd left the apartment before dawn, too afraid of who might be watching the building, too paranoid to stay still. Better to freeze than to be found. The walk to Grand Central normally took 12 minutes. Tonight it felt like wading through quicksand. Each step required conscious thought, my legs heavy and uncooperative. When had I last slept? Yesterday afternoon, maybe. 2 hours on the studio couch before nightmares of the warehouse jolted me awake. My body had stopped sending normal signals days ago, replaced by a constant hum of adrenaline I'd learned to function through. Blood started trickling into my eye as I climbed the terminal steps. Fresh at first, then heavier, the gash above my eyebrow, a gift from Dante's brass ring when he'd slammed my head against the alley brick an hour ago, splitting open again from the cold. Perfect. Just perfect. I pressed my sleeve against it, feeling warm wetness soak through the white fabric as I pushed into the terminal's chaos. The main concourse was packed despite the late hour. Manhattan never really slept during the holidays, and neither did Grand Central. Bodies pressed together around the enormous Christmas tree. Everyone trying to catch trains, meet lovers, escape the cold. Hundreds of witnesses if someone screamed. Hundreds of people who wouldn't care. Dizziness hit me as I wove through the crowd. I grabbed a wooden bench, steadying myself as commuters surged past. The motion, the noise, the Christmas lights blurring into nauseous streaks of gold and green. It all felt like drowning. My vision grayed at the edges. Get to the subway, just get to the subway. Get somewhere public, somewhere safe. Survive until morning. I pushed forward through the crowd, heading toward the center of the concourse, toward the famous four-faced clock, toward the light. My portfolio bag caught on someone's rolling suitcase. I yanked it free. Too hard. The momentum threw me off balance. My boot, still sticky with alley grime, slipped on the polished marble. The world tilted. Gravity took hold. I pitched forward, throwing my hands out, bracing for the impact of stone, bracing for cracked ribs and a concussion, and the final indignity of dying in public while Christmas music played. I never hit the floor. Instead, I collided with something immovable, something that didn't give an inch. strong arms locked around my waist and shoulders, arresting my fall with shocking strength. The force of it slammed me against a chest that felt like granite beneath expensive wool. I gasped, my head lolling back against a solid shoulder. Through the haze of pain and failing consciousness, I looked up. The man holding me was terrifying. Tall, maybe 6'3", towering over the holiday crowd that suddenly wasn't crowding anymore. They were backing away, giving him space the way prey gives space to an apex predator. His hair was slicked back, dark and severe. But it was his face that stole the remaining air from my lungs. Sharp enough to cut glass, cheekbones that could have been carved from marble, and ink, tattoos etched into his skin like a biography written in violence. A small cross sat high on his right cheekbone. Script in another language ran down the left side of his neck, disappearing into the crisp white collar of a shirt that probably cost more than my rent. He didn't look like salvation. He looked like the devil I'd been running from had sent a bigger devil to collect me. But his eyes, they weren't looking at me with hunger or malice or the cold calculation I'd seen in Dante Russo's face. They were scanning, clinically, methodically, the blood soaking through my sleeve and dripping down my temple, the bruises I'd tried to hide with foundation, the terror I couldn't disguise in my dilated pupils. His expression shifted, from distant observation to laser focus, from cold indifference to something that looked almost like rage. The crowd around us fell silent, a bubble of stillness in the chaos. People whispered, someone gasped, a woman grabbed her child's hand and pulled him back. They knew who this was. William Cantrell. The name floated through my fragmenting consciousness like a death sentence. The King of New York. The man who owns everything the law doesn't touch, and some things it does. My knees buckled completely. William tightened his grip, pulling me flush against him, supporting my weight as easily as if I were made of air. He didn't seem to notice, or care, that my blood was staining his immaculate black suit jacket. He didn't acknowledge the hundreds of eyes watching. He leaned down. His voice was a low rumble that vibrated through my chest, dark and dangerous and impossibly, inexplicably gentle. "Who hurt you?" I tried to speak, tried to warn him about the men hunting me, about Dante Russo's crew pushing through the crowd somewhere behind me, about the violence I'd dragged into his perfectly controlled territory. But my voice failed. My shaking, blood-stained hand lifted on instinct, pointing back toward the terminal entrance where I'd come from. William's gaze followed my gesture. His eyes locked onto something, someone, across the concourse. The fear I'd carried for 2 days crystallized into something sharp and real. I followed his line of sight just long enough to see them, the 2 men in leather jackets who'd chased me through 6 blocks of Manhattan. The tall one's cruel smile. The stocky one reaching inside his coat for something that glinted metal. They froze. The smile evaporated from the tall one's face, replaced by absolute dread. They took a step back. Then another. They didn't run. Running would be an admission, an insult, but they retreated like wolves encountering something bigger and more vicious in their territory. Because they had. They'd encountered William Cantrell. And everyone in the New York underworld knew the one rule about the king: you don't hunt in his house. William looked back down at me. His jaw was set. His eyes had gone from concern to cold, lethal promise. He adjusted his grip, one arm sliding beneath my knees, lifting me against his chest like I weighed nothing. Like carrying bleeding women through Grand Central Terminal at Christmas was just another Tuesday. I wanted to protest, wanted to tell him to put me down, that I didn't need saving, that I could handle this myself. But the lies wouldn't come. Because I couldn't handle this. I was 23 years old, an art student who spent her days restoring broken paintings, not running from men who murdered witnesses. The Christmas lights above the tree began to spin, not slowly, violently, like a kaleidoscope having a seizure. The voices around us, murmurs, gasps, someone crying, faded into a high-pitched ringing. I tried to focus on William's face, on the cross tattooed on his cheek, on the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow, on anything that would anchor me to consciousness. "Stay with me," he said, his voice cutting through the static filling my head. It wasn't a request. It was a command from a man used to being obeyed. But my body had already made its choice. The adrenaline that had carried me through the alley, through 6 blocks of Manhattan, through the terminal doors, it finally ran out. The last thing I registered was the feeling of being carried, of movement, of William's arms tightening around me as my blood stained his shirt red, of his voice low and lethal, speaking to someone nearby in a tone that promised violence. Then the lights went out. Before we dive deeper into this deadly game of protection and possession, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. Because trust me, what happens next in that penthouse? You won't see it coming. Waking up felt like surfacing from deep water, disorienting, painful, with the sense that I'd drowned and been dragged back to life against my will. I blinked against dim light. Not the fluorescent glare of a hospital. Not the weak gray of my studio apartment. This was softer, warmer, wrong. I was lying in a bed that felt like floating on clouds, wrapped in sheets with a thread count higher than my credit score. The room around me was massive, all dark wood and clean lines, minimalist in that way that screamed wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched along one wall, revealing a glittering skyline that could only be viewed from serious height. Manhattan spread below like a kingdom made of light. The air smelled of antiseptic and something else, something expensive and masculine. Cedar, maybe, leather, rain. I sat up too quickly. Pain exploded behind my eyes, sharp enough to make me gasp. My hand flew to my forehead, finding neat bandaging where the gash had been. Professional work. Clean tape. Someone had stitched me up while I was unconscious. "Careful, you lost a lot of blood." The voice came from the shadows near the windows, every muscle in my body locked. William Cantrell stepped into the ambient glow of the city lights. He'd shed the blood-stained jacket. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms covered in intricate black ink, serpents, script, geometric patterns that told stories I couldn't read. He held a glass of water in one hand, 2 white pills in the other. Up close, without the adrenaline and terror clouding my vision, he was even more unsettling. Not because he was ugly, the opposite. He was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. Dangerous, precise, made for violence. "Where am I?" My voice came out hoarse, scraped raw. "My home." He crossed the room with that predatory grace I'd noticed in the terminal, silent, controlled, like a wolf deciding whether you're prey or something more interesting. He set the water and pills on the nightstand beside me. "Drink. Take the pain relievers. The men are gone." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 5 degrees. "They saw me. They ran. But they won't run far enough." He sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress barely dipped under his weight. This close, I could see his eyes clearly, hazel, flecked with gold, unnervingly focused. The cross tattoo on his cheekbone was smaller than I'd thought. Delicate, almost. A stark contrast to the brutal elegance of the rest of him. He reached out slowly. I flinched. William froze, his hand suspended in the air between us. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, quickly buried beneath that impenetrable mask. "I'm not going to hurt you, Julie." I stared at him. How do you know my name? I checked your student ID while the doctor was stitching your head. He lowered his hand carefully, as if I were a wild animal that might bolt. I needed to know who I was protecting. Protecting. The word hung in the air like a promise, or a threat. What did you see? William's voice shifted, businesslike now. At the warehouse. I looked down at my hands, still stained with dried blood under the nails. I don't know what you mean. Julie. He said my name like a warning. 2 men chased you through 6 blocks of Manhattan during rush hour. You were bleeding from a head wound, terrified. That doesn't happen because you took a wrong turn. The memory hit me like a physical blow. The warehouse, the loading dock, the man begging, the gunshot that echoed off concrete, and the laughter. God, that awful laughter. I was cutting through the warehouse district, I whispered. Taking a shortcut home from the studio, I heard voices, shouting. I should have kept walking, should have put in my headphones and pretended I didn't hear anything. But you didn't? But I didn't. I forced myself to meet his eyes. I looked, just for a second, through a gap in the fence. There was a man on his knees, begging, and another man standing over him. He had a scar, right through his eyebrow. He was laughing while the other man cried. Then he pulled the trigger, like it was nothing, like he was taking out the trash. William went perfectly still, the kind of stillness that comes before an explosion. This man with the scar, did he see you? I nodded, my throat tight. He turned. Right after, our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds, then I ran. Describe him. Tall, maybe 6 feet, dark hair, slicked back, expensive suit, the scar, and he had this smile, even when he was chasing me, like it was all a game. Dante Russo. William stood abruptly, pacing to the window. He braced his hands against the glass, his reflection ghostly against the city lights. Vincenzo Russo's son. We have a truce. Had a truce. I don't understand. He turned back to me, and the look on his face made my blood run cold. That warehouse is on my docks. Dante executing someone on my territory without permission is a provocation, an insult, and you... He paused, his jaw clenching. You're a witness to a murder committed by a man whose father I have a fragile peace with. Your survival makes you the most dangerous liability in New York. Then I'll go to the police. The police belong to Russo. You walk into a precinct, you're dead before you finish giving your statement. William crossed back to the bed, looming over me with an intensity that stole my breath. You can't go home. Can't go back to school. Can't go anywhere Dante might find you. I can't stay here with you. Panic clawed up my throat. You're William Cantrell. Everyone knows what you do. Then you know I protect what's mine. The words landed like a physical touch. I'm not yours. You fell into my arms, Julie. That makes you my responsibility. His eyes darkened, the gold flecks catching the light. And I take that very seriously. The office was silent except for the low hum of the city 40 floors below. William stood at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, watching the closed door of the guest room where Julie slept. Increase security on all floors, he said quietly. No one gets up here without my explicit approval. Boss. Elias's voice crackled through the line, careful, measured. The Russos are going to see this as a declaration, keeping the girl. Her name is Julie. A pause. Keeping Julie will be interpreted as an act of war. Is she worth that? William's hand tightened around the phone. I'm not handing her over. William, let them see it as whatever they want, Elias. The girl stays under my protection. He ended the call, tossing the phone onto his desk. Outside, snow began to fall over Manhattan. In his pocket, William's phone buzzed with a message. He ignored it. In another part of the city, Elias stared at his own phone. At the message from an unknown number, the boss making a mistake. You see it too. Call me. He deleted it. But his thumb hovered over the number for a long time before the screen went dark. The penthouse was a fortress disguised as luxury. I discovered this on my second morning, when restlessness drove me from the bedroom despite the dull throb in my head. The living space was enormous. All clean lines and dark leather, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Manhattan that most people only saw in movies. But it was the details that told the real story. Security panel hidden behind abstract art, steel-reinforced doors that looked like polished wood, a private elevator with a biometric scanner. And in William's office, visible through a half-open door, a wall of monitors showing every angle of the building, the street, the lobby. Not a home, a command center. Looking for something? I spun. William stood in the kitchen doorway, dressed down in dark jeans and a black Henley that somehow made him more intimidating than the suit had. The tattoos on his forearms caught the morning light, serpents coiled around script I couldn't read. I gestured vaguely. I needed to move. You should be resting. I've been resting for 18 hours. I crossed my arms, defensive. I'm fine. His eyes dropped to the bandage on my forehead, the bruise blooming along my cheekbone. You're not fine, but you're stubborn. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Breakfast, now. It wasn't a request. The table was set with coffee, pastries, fruit, more food than I'd seen in weeks. I sat across from William, hyper-aware of how domestic this felt. How wrong. Why are you doing this? I asked as he poured coffee with surprising grace. Helping me, feeding me. You're the kind of man people cross themselves over when you walk by. William set the pot down, his expression unreadable. Is that what you think? That I'm the monster under the bed? I think you're dangerous. I met his gaze steadily. Everyone knows what you do. And what do I do, Julie? You run the city, control territory, make people disappear. I maintain order in places the law abandoned. He leaned back, studying me with that unnerving intensity. I keep worse monsters from running wild. The violence exists with or without me. I just decide where it goes. That's one way to justify it. It's the truth. He paused. You ran through Grand Central Terminal at rush hour instead of hiding in a store or calling for help. Why? The question caught me off guard. I thought, if I could get to the subway, lose them in the crowd. You thought wrong. You should have found a locked room and barricaded yourself inside until the police came. His eyes narrowed. Unless you already knew the police wouldn't help. I looked away, fingers tight around my coffee cup. You're smarter than you're pretending to be, William said quietly. Stop underestimating yourself. It might get you killed. She found the painting in his study. William heard the sharp intake of breath and looked up from his desk to find Julie standing before the 18th century oil landscape, badly damaged, one corner water-stained and cracking. This is a disaster, she murmured, leaning close without touching. The varnish is yellowed, the canvas is separating. Whoever tried to restore this last made it worse. It was my mother's. William stood, moving beside her. She died before she could have it properly fixed. Julie glanced at him, something softening in her expression. I could fix it, if you had the right materials. You restore art. I restore broken things. She traced the air above the damaged section. It's what I'm good at, what I love, taking something ruined and making it whole again. William looked at her profile, the concentration, the gentle expertise, the way she handled even the concept of the painting with reverence. And what about when you're the broken thing? Her hand dropped. Then I guess I'm useless. No. The word came out harder than he intended. She turned to him, startled. Broken doesn't mean useless, Julie. It means you survived something that should have killed you. That takes strength most people don't have. The air between them felt suddenly charged. Too close. Too honest. The cross, Julie said softly, her eyes lifting to the tattoo on his cheek. What does it mean? William's jaw tightened. He'd known the question would come eventually. It's a memorial. For who? My sister, Isabella. The name tasted like ash. She was 19, dating a man I didn't trust. I warned her. We fought. She stopped talking to me. He paused, the old guilt rising like bile. 3 months later, he put her in the hospital. She died before I got there. Julie's expression crumbled. William? I failed her. I saw the danger, and I didn't act fast enough. He touched the cross, a habitual gesture. This reminds me never to make that mistake again. Understanding dawned in her eyes. That's why you helped me. In the terminal. The blood, the bruises. You looked like her. The admission came out rough. For a second, when I caught you, I thought. He stopped himself. You're not her, but you needed help the same way she did, and this time, I wasn't too late. The call came during dinner. William's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression going cold. Excuse me. He stepped into his office. I couldn't hear the words, but I heard the tone, clipped, dangerous, final. When he emerged, his face was granite. They know you're here. My stomach dropped. The Russos? Everyone. A Cantrell soldier carrying a bloodied woman through Grand Central makes headlines in our world. He poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, downed it. Vincenzo Russo is asking questions, wanting to know if I'm harboring a witness. What did you tell him? Nothing. But silence is an answer, too. The elevator chimed. I flinched. William's hand moved instinctively to the gun at his hip before he checked his phone and relaxed fractionally. Elias! The man who stepped out was striking. Tall, well-dressed, with an easy charm that felt calculated. He nodded to me politely before turning to William. We need to talk, alone. Anything you say to me, you can say in front of Julie. Elias's smile tightened. Fine. Boss, the Russos are offering a deal. Give them the girl, get the entire waterfront, twice what we control now, clean territory, no fight. No. William, she's under my protection, Elias. That's not negotiable. Protecting one witness against the entire Russo family? Elias's voice rose slightly. That's not strategy. That's suicide. William stepped closer to his second-in-command, his voice dropping to something lethal. I said no. If you question me again on this, we're going to have a different kind of conversation. Elias held his gaze for a long moment, before nodding stiffly. Understood. He left. The silence he left behind felt ominous. The nightmare came with Dante Russo's laughter. I was back in the warehouse, watching the execution on loop. But this time, when Dante turned toward me, he didn't chase. He walked, slowly, smiling. And the man kneeling in front of him wasn't a stranger anymore. It was William, bleeding, looking at me with those hazel eyes as the gun pressed against his temple. I woke screaming. The darkness was disorienting. Wrong room, wrong bed. Then I remembered. A shadow moved in the doorway. William stood there, shirtless, gun in hand, scanning for threats before his eyes found me. He lowered the weapon slowly. You're safe, he said quietly. I was shaking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't apologize for nightmares. He stayed in the doorway, giving me space. Do you want me to leave? I should have said yes, should have sent him away. Instead, I whispered, Stay? William moved to the chair near the window, settling into it like a guardian. Distant enough to be respectful, close enough to matter. We didn't speak, didn't need to. His presence, solid, real, protective, anchored me back to consciousness. In the darkness, I could almost pretend he wasn't a monster. Almost. The Velvet Room occupied the top floor of a building that straddled the invisible border between Cantrell and Russo territory, neutral ground by decades-old agreement. William arrived at midnight, Elias on his left, 3 soldiers forming a loose perimeter behind them. He'd chosen his armor carefully. Black suit, no tie, the kind of tailored precision that announced wealth and power without needing to shout. The cross on his cheek caught the low amber lighting as they moved through the club's main floor toward the private dining room in back. Dante Russo was already there. He sat sprawled in a leather booth like a king in exile, flanked by 2 heavy-set men William recognized as the Russo family's enforcers. Dante himself was younger than William by 5 years, 30 at most, with slicked-back dark hair and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. The kind of scar you earned, not the kind you were born with. He was smiling. "Cantrell." Dante raised his glass in mock salute. "Wasn't sure you'd show." William slid into the booth across from him, Elias settling beside him with the casual alertness of a man ready to kill. "You asked for a meeting. I'm here." "Civilized. I like it." Dante's smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Let's talk about the girl." "What girl?" "Don't insult my intelligence." Dante leaned forward, elbows on the table. "The whole city saw you carry her out of Grand Central. Bleeding all over your nice suit. Very dramatic, very public." William's expression remained neutral. "I helped someone who fell." Someone who witnessed a private business transaction on the warehouse docks. Dante's voice dropped, losing the playful edge. "Someone who saw something she shouldn't have. Someone who belongs to me." "She doesn't belong to anyone." "She's a witness to a crime. That makes her a liability." Dante's fingers drummed against his glass. "I'm here as a courtesy, William. Out of respect for the truce our families have maintained. Give me the girl. Let me clean up my mess. We walk away friends." William took his time responding, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, controlled, lethal. "She was bleeding in my hands. That makes her mine to protect." Dante's smile finally faltered. "You're choosing one random woman over peace?" "I'm choosing not to hand an innocent witness over to the man who gave her that head wound." William's eyes locked onto Dante's. "The same man who executed someone on my docks without permission. You want to talk about liability? Let's talk about you violating our territory agreements." "That was business. That was disrespect." William leaned back, his posture deceptively relaxed. "You came into my house, Dante, spilled blood on my floor, terrorized a civilian, and now you want me to gift wrap the witness and hand her over with a bow?" Dante's jaw clenched. "No woman is worth starting a war, Cantrell." William smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then stop making me prove you wrong." The air in the room crystallized. Both men stared at each other across the table. Old predators recognizing that the delicate balance they'd maintained was crumbling. Dante stood slowly. His men flanked him immediately. "You're making a mistake." "I've made worse." William didn't stand, didn't move. The insult of remaining seated while Dante left was deliberate. "Tell your father we're done here." Dante's hand twitched toward his jacket. Elias's hand moved faster, hovering over his concealed weapon. The Russo enforcers tensed. For 3 heartbeats, violence hung in the air like smoke. Then Dante laughed, sharp, bitter. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it." Dante and his men left without another word. No handshake, no courtesy. The truce died in the silence they left behind. Elias waited until they were in the car before speaking. "Boss, this is insane. The entire Russo family against us because of one girl?" "Her name is Julie." "I don't care what her name is." Elias twisted in his seat, frustration breaking through his usual composure. We're talking about war. Real war. Bodies in the streets, civilian casualties, federal attention. Is she worth that? William stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. If I hand her over, I'm no better than the men who killed my sister. This isn't about Isabella. It's always about Isabella. William's voice went cold. I saw the danger then and did nothing. I won't make that mistake again. Elias's jaw clenched. He turned forward, silent, but William could feel the tension radiating off him. They didn't speak the rest of the drive. The news alert popped up on my phone at 11 p.m. Tensions between rival families spark concern in Manhattan's underground. No names, no details, just vague language about territorial disputes and potential escalation. But I'd been in William's world long enough now to read between the lines. I pulled up a tabloid site next. King of the city makes bold move. Who is the mystery woman? There was a grainy photo, me in William's arms, blood on my face, his expression fierce as he carried me through Grand Central. The comment section was a war zone of speculation. My stomach turned. This wasn't just about me anymore. William's decision to protect me had ripples, consequences, the kind that got people killed. I set the phone down, staring at the glittering skyline beyond the windows. Somewhere out there, men were preparing for violence. Territory lines were being redrawn. All because I'd looked through a fence at the wrong moment. All because William Cantrell refused to let me go. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like something else entirely, something dangerous. The bar in Red Hook was the kind of place where deals happened in shadows. Elias sat in the back booth, nursing whiskey he wasn't drinking, when the man slid in across from him. Marco Russo, Vincenzo's nephew, mid-level player with connections that mattered. You came, Marco said. I shouldn't be here. But you are, Marco leaned forward. Because you know William's making a mistake. The girl isn't worth what's coming. Elias said nothing. We don't want war either, Marco continued. But my cousin is dead set on getting that witness. If William won't give her up willingly, he shrugged. We'll have to take her. The penthouse is a fortress. Every fortress has weaknesses. Marco's eyes glinted. Security rotations, blind spots, ways in that only someone close to Cantrell would know. Elias's fingers tightened around his glass. You're asking me to betray my boss. I'm asking you to save him from himself. Marco slid a burner phone across the table. One call, that's all we need. The security layout. We scare him, make him see reason. Nobody has to die. Elias stared at the phone for a long moment. Then he picked it up. Just to scare him, he said quietly. Nothing more. Marco smiled. Of course, nothing more. You're doing it wrong. William looked up from the painting, brush suspended over the damaged canvas. I'm following your instructions exactly. You're holding the brush like a weapon. I stepped closer, reaching for his hand. It's restoration, not assassination, gentle pressure, like this. My fingers closed over his, guiding the brush across the cracked varnish. His hand was warm, calloused, steady beneath mine. We stood too close, close enough that I could smell cedar and gunpowder, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Better? His voice was low, amused. Better. I didn't step back. Neither did he. We'd been working on his mother's painting for an hour, the penthouse quiet around us. Jazz played softly from hidden speakers. William had opened wine, expensive, red, the kind that tasted like velvet. For the first time since Grand Central, I felt almost normal, almost safe. You're smiling, William observed. Am I not allowed to smile? I didn't think I'd see you smile again. He set down the brush, turning to face me fully. Not after everything. Maybe you're not as terrifying as you think. Or maybe you're braver than you realize. His eyes dropped to my mouth. The air between us charged with something electric, dangerous. He leaned in. I didn't move away. His hand came up, fingertips brushing my jaw. The lights flickered. Once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in eerie red. William's entire body shifted, from artist to predator in a heartbeat. His hand moved to the gun at his hip. "William? Get behind me. Now!" Gunshots erupted from below. Close. Too close. The security feeds were dead. All of them. Someone had cut the system at its source. Something that required access codes only 3 people had. Him, his head of security, and Elias. "Safe room. Move." William grabbed Julie's wrist, pulling her toward the reinforced panic room hidden behind the bookshelf. His phone was already at his ear. "Marco, we're under attack. How many?" Static. Then. 8, maybe 10. They breached the garage. "Boss, they knew exactly where—" The call cut off. William shoved Julie toward the safe room door. "Get inside. Lock it. Don't open it for anyone but me." "What about you?" "I'll handle this." Glass exploded inward. The floor-to-ceiling windows shattered as grappling hooks punched through, followed by men in tactical gear rappelling down from the roof. Professional. Coordinated. Expensive. Russo money. William fired twice. The first man dropped, rope swinging his body into empty air. The second made it inside, rolling behind the couch. "Go!" William roared at Julie. She ran. He provided cover, moving with brutal efficiency. Each shot precise, each movement calculated. But there were too many. They poured in through windows, the elevator shaft, the stairwell he didn't know they'd accessed. Someone gave them everything. A mercenary rounded the corner. William put 2 in his chest, but another was already behind him. He spun, but not fast enough. The man went down, blood spraying. Julie stood in the safe room doorway, holding a fallen assault rifle with shaking hands, her face white with shock. "I told you to lock the door!" "You're welcome!" No time to argue. William grabbed her, hauling her back toward the safe room as bullets chewed through his furniture, his art, his sanctuary. He fired blind behind them, giving them seconds. The attacker came from the bedroom. William saw the gun barrel, saw it tracking toward Julie, saw everything in crystalline slow motion. He shoved her sideways. The bullet meant for her chest punched into his shoulder instead. The impact spun him, white-hot pain, exploding through his body. He hit the floor hard, gun skittering away. Above him, the mercenary raised his weapon for the kill shot. Julie threw herself over William, her body shielding his, her scream raw and primal. "No!" The mercenary hesitated. Just a second, just long enough. Gunfire erupted from the elevator. William's reinforcements, Marco and 6 soldiers, poured out, cutting down the remaining attackers with prejudice. Blood. So much blood. It poured from William's shoulder, soaking his shirt, pooling on the floor beneath him. His face had gone gray, lips pressed into a thin line against the pain. "William, William, stay with me." My hands pressed against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Warm, slick, endless. "Get her out," William ground out to Marco. "Safe house. Brooklyn, code Nightingale." "Boss, you need a hospital." "No hospitals. Move. Now." They lifted him. I refused to let go, my hands still pressed to his shoulder as they carried him to the service elevator. Down 40 floors. Into an armored SUV that smelled like leather and gunpowder. William's head lolled against my lap. His blood stained my jeans, my hands, everything. "You're supposed to be untouchable," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "You can't get hurt for me. You can't." His eyes opened. Hazel. Fierce even through the pain. I already did. The safe house was smaller, colder, but defensible. They laid William on a bed. Marco produced a medical kit that looked military grade. I pushed him aside. "I've got it." "Ma'am, you're not—" "I'm a nursing student. I know what I'm doing." My hands shook as I cut away William's shirt. The bullet had gone clean through. Small mercy. But the damage was extensive. Get me clean water, towels, and find me actual sutures, not that field kit garbage. They obeyed. I worked in silence, cleaning the wound, stitching entry and exit with hands that steadied as muscle memory took over. William hissed through his teeth but didn't cry out, didn't flinch, just watched me with those impossible eyes. "You're good at this," he murmured. "I fix broken things, remember?" My voice cracked. "But you're not supposed to break. You're supposed to be the strong one, the untouchable one." "No one's untouchable, Julie." He caught my wrist gently. "But I'd take 100 bullets if it meant keeping you safe." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this impossible man who'd turned his world into a war zone for me. Marco appeared in the doorway with painkillers. William took them dry, his eyes already growing heavy. "Sleep," I whispered. "I'll be here." "Promise?" "Promise." He drifted off, his hands still holding mine. In the hallway, I heard Marco talking quietly to another soldier. Only 3 people had those codes, Boss, me, and Elias, and I sure as hell didn't sell him out. My blood turned to ice. "Where is Elias?" the other man asked. "Gone. Phone's off. Disappeared right before the attack." Marco's voice hardened. "When we find him, the boss will make an example that'll last generations." I looked down at William's sleeping face, at the man who'd taken a bullet meant for me, at the cross tattooed on his cheek, a memorial to the sister he couldn't save. He'd been betrayed by his closest friend. Because of me. I pressed my forehead to his uninjured shoulder and finally let myself break. The Brooklyn safe house was a cage wrapped in brick and barbed wire. Guards rotated every 6 hours. Motion sensors covered every approach. William had turned the modest 2-story into a fortress, but it felt nothing like the penthouse. This place smelled like old coffee and gun oil, its walls closing in tighter each day. I should have run. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to walk out the door, find the nearest police station, take my chances with witness protection. But logic didn't account for the way my chest tightened every time William winced changing his bandages. Didn't explain why I checked his temperature every 4 hours like a nervous mother hen. Didn't justify the fact that I was falling for a man whose hands were stained with blood I couldn't see but knew was there. William sat on the couch, his injured shoulder bound in fresh gauze I'd changed an hour ago. He moved carefully, his usual predatory grace diminished by pain and healing tissue. Vulnerable. Human. It terrified me how much I wanted to protect him back. "You're staring," he said without looking up from the tablet displaying security feeds. "You're supposed to be resting." "I'm fine. You were shot 3 days ago." "I've had worse." He finally met my eyes. "Stop hovering. Stop being a terrible patient." Something that might have been a smile tugged at his mouth. Then it faded. "You should eat." Marco brought food. "I'm not hungry." I sat across from him, pulling my knees to my chest. "How many people have you killed?" The question hung in the air like smoke. William set down the tablet slowly. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I need to understand who I'm—" I stopped myself. "Who I'm falling for. Who I'm trusting with my life." William leaned back, studying me with those hazel eyes that saw too much. "I don't keep count. That would make it a score. A game." He paused. "But I have rules. No women, no children, no civilians who aren't in the life. The men I've killed, they knew the risks. They chose violence. That's convenient morality. It's survival morality." His voice hardened. "You think the world is black and white, Julie? Good people and bad people? It's not. It's 1,000 shades of gray, and sometimes the only way to stop worse monsters is to become one yourself." "That's what you tell yourself?" "That's what keeps me alive." He stood, wincing, and moved to the window. "The Russo's traffic children. force women into prostitution, sell drugs to kids outside schools. I stop them. Not because I'm a hero, but because this city is mine, and I decide what happens in it. By killing people. By making examples. He turned back to me. Fear is a tool, Julie. Use it right, and you save more lives than you take. I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that violence only bred more violence. But I'd seen Dante Russo's smile, knew what men like him did when no one stopped them. Your sister, I said quietly. What was her name? William's entire body went still. Isabella. Tell me about her. For a long moment I thought he wouldn't. Then he sat back down, his movements careful, his voice distant with memory. She was 19, smart, wanted to be a doctor. He touched the cross on his cheek absently. She started dating this guy, Matteo. Charming, came from money. I didn't trust him, but Isabella was stubborn. We fought about it. She stopped talking to me. What happened? He isolated her, slowly. Friends, family, school, everything that wasn't him disappeared from her life. By the time she realized what he was, it was too late. His jaw clenched. One night he beat her so badly she couldn't walk. A neighbor called 911. I got the call at 3 a.m. She died before I made it to the hospital. My heart shattered. William! I saw the signs, the way he touched her in public, possessive, controlling, the way she flinched sometimes. I saw it, and I told myself it wasn't my business, that she was an adult who could make her own choices. He looked at me, and the guilt in his eyes was devastating. I was wrong, and she paid for my hesitation with her life. That wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's why the cross. Why I can't hand you over to Dante Russo no matter what it costs. Because you're her, Julie. Another innocent woman caught in violence she didn't ask for. And this time, I'm not too late. Tears burned my eyes. I moved before I could stop myself, closing the distance between us, kneeling in front of him. You're not responsible for everyone. I'm responsible for you. His hand came up, cupping my face with impossible gentleness. From the moment you fell into my arms. We were too close. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. My breath caught. The attackers, I whispered. They knew exactly where you kept weapons. Where the safe room was. The security rotation times. William's expression shifted. Shuddered. What? I heard one of them. In the penthouse. He told another guy to check the northeast corner bedroom. That's where you kept the rifle cabinet. How would they know that unless someone told them? William's voice went deadly quiet. His hand dropped from my face. Only 3 people knew that layout. Me, my head of security, and Elias. The name settled between us like a stone. Where is Elias? I asked. Gone. Disappeared hours before the attack. William stood abruptly, pain flashing across his face before he controlled it. I trusted him. 20 years. He saved my life twice, and he sold me out. He sold me out. I corrected. This is my fault. If I hadn't... Don't. William turned back to me, fierce. This is Elias's choice. His betrayal. Not yours. Pause here for just a second. If you're invested in Julie and William, if you're feeling the weight of his guilt and her transformation, leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. This is the moment where everything changes, and I want you here for every devastating second. Comment below and tell me, have you ever met someone who made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself? Later that night, I dozed off on the couch reading. I woke to the weight of a blanket being draped over me, the scent of cedar and gunpowder. William stood over me, his good hand lingering on my shoulder for just a moment before he stepped back. "Sleep," he murmured. "You're safe here." I caught his wrist. "Stay." He hesitated, then sat on the edge of the couch, close enough that I could feel his warmth. I rested my head against his uninjured side. His arm came around me carefully. We didn't speak, didn't need to. The silence said everything words couldn't. After a while, his fingers found my hair, gently untangling the messy strands. It was such a normal gesture, such a human gesture from a man people called a monster. I tilted my head up. He looked down. The space between us collapsed to nothing. He leaned in. I stopped breathing. Then he pulled back, his expression pained. "You deserve better than this." "What if I don't want better?" "You deserve a world where men don't bleed for you, where you're not hiding in safe houses, where—" I pressed my fingers to his lips. "Stop deciding what I deserve." Marco found him in the small office, staring at security feeds that showed nothing but empty streets. "Boss, what do you need?" William didn't turn around. "Find Elias." "We've been trying." "Find him." William's voice was ice. "I don't care if you have to burn down every building between here and Queens. I don't care who you have to pay or threaten. Find him and bring him to me, alive." Marco understood. Alive meant William wanted answers before he delivered judgment. "It'll be done." "And Marco?" William finally looked at him. "When you find him, make sure he knows exactly why he's going to die." They brought Elias in at dawn. Marco and two soldiers dragged him into the safe house's basement. Concrete walls, a single light bulb, the kind of room designed for conversations that ended in blood. Elias's face was bruised, lips split, but his eyes were defiant as they shoved him into a metal chair. William descended the stairs slowly, each step measured. His shoulder still ached, but he'd refused painkillers. He wanted to feel everything for this. "Boss," Elias's voice was hoarse. "Let me explain." "Explain?" William stopped 3 feet away. "You sold me out to the Russos. You gave them security codes, layouts, rotation schedules. 8 men died defending my home because of you. I nearly died." He paused. "Julie nearly died. That's exactly why I did it." Elias lurched forward against the zip ties binding his wrists. "You were going to start a war over some girl you met 4 days ago. I was trying to force your hand, make you see reason before bodies started piling up. By getting her killed? By scaring you into giving her up." Elias's voice cracked. "I've known you since we were 15, William. 20 years of loyalty. 20 years of building this empire together. And you were going to throw it all away for a woman you don't even know." William's jaw clenched. "You had no right to make that choice." "Someone had to." Elias met his eyes, unrepentant. "The family comes first. It always comes first. That's what you taught me. But suddenly, this random art student matters more than everything we built? More than the men who bleed for you? That's not strength, boss. That's weakness." "You think protecting an innocent woman is weakness?" "I think losing perspective is weakness." Elias leaned back. "You're not thinking clearly. Haven't been since you caught her. This obsession with saving her, it's about Isabella. We both know it. But Julie isn't your sister, and you can't bring Isabella back by dying for someone else." The words hit like bullets. William's hand moved to the cross on his cheek, the unconscious gesture he'd made 1,000 times. "You're right," William said quietly. "Julie isn't Isabella, but that doesn't mean she deserves to die because it's inconvenient for us." "Us?" Elias laughed bitterly. "There is no us anymore, is there? You made your choice. The girl over the family. Over me." William pulled his gun. The metallic click of the safety echoed in the concrete space. Elias's defiance finally cracked. "William, please. You nearly got her killed. You got 8 of my men killed. You betrayed everything we built together. William's voice was steady, empty. But more than that, you made me doubt my own judgment, made me question whether protecting her was right. He raised the gun. It is right. And I won't let your betrayal make me forget that. Boss, we're brothers. Brothers don't sell each other out. The shot was clean, professional. Elias slumped forward, the light leaving his eyes before his body hit the floor. William holstered his weapon and walked upstairs without looking back. I heard the gunshot from the kitchen. Single. Final. The sound echoed through the safe house like a death knell. When William emerged from the basement, his face was granite, his hands were steady, but his eyes, God, his eyes looked gutted. You killed him. I set down my coffee cup carefully. Your best friend. He wasn't my friend anymore. William moved to the sink, washing his hands with methodical precision. Friends don't get you killed. He was trying to protect you. He was trying to control me. William turned, and the anger beneath his controlled exterior finally broke through. He thought he could make my choices for me, thought he knew better than I did what was worth fighting for. He was wrong. So you executed him? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. Because if I let betrayal stand, if I show weakness now, the Russos will tear apart everything I've built. Every soldier who bleeds for me needs to know that loyalty matters, that I will always protect my own. Am I yours? The question came out before I could stop it. Is that what this is? Possession? William crossed to me in 3 strides. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. You became mine the moment I caught you, not because I own you, but because I claimed responsibility for your life, your safety, your future. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Elias put you in danger. He chose the Russos over you, over me, over everything we stand for. He died for that choice. I should have been horrified, should have run screaming from this man who killed his own brother without flinching. But all I felt was a strange, terrible understanding, and something else. Something that felt dangerously like love. I found William in the office an hour later, staring at a map of Manhattan spread across the desk. I want to help, I said. He looked up, surprised. Julie? The warehouse where I saw Dante. I remember everything. I moved to the desk, pointing to the warehouse district. It's here, near Pier 53. The building is red brick, 3 loading docks on the east side. Dante came out of the center one. William's expression sharpened. What else? He had 4 men with him. They smoked while they waited. Cigarettes, not cigars. One of them called him D instead of his full name. Familiar. Casual. I met William's eyes. He goes back there. I know he does. Men like him are creatures of habit. You want to set a trap. I want to end this. My voice steadied. The Russos won't stop coming. You said it yourself. I'm a liability. The only way I'm ever safe is if Dante can't hunt me anymore. William studied me for a long moment. This isn't your world, Julie. Once you cross this line, once you help me plan this, there's no going back to normal. There is no normal. Not anymore. I stepped closer. You took a bullet for me. Killed your best friend for me. Started a war for me. The least I can do is help you finish it. Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. The plan is dangerous. You'll see things, see me do things, that you can't unsee. I've already seen the worst men can do, William. I reached up, tracing the cross on his cheek. Now, I want to see what you'll do for me. The air between us ignited. William's hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. His eyes searched mine. One last question, one last chance to run. I pulled him down to meet me. The kiss was desperate, consuming, 20 years of his control shattering against 4 days of my terror and need. His mouth claimed mine like he was staking ownership, and I let him. Kissed him back with equal ferocity, poured every complicated emotion into the press of lips and teeth and tongue. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, William rested his forehead against mine. "Tomorrow night," he said, "we end the Russos." The gun sat on my nightstand like a promise. William had left it there with a single instruction, just in case. I stared at it for an hour after he left. Matte black, cold, heavy with implications. I'd never held a gun before the penthouse attack, never imagined I'd need to. But that world, the world of art restoration and student loans and normal problems, felt like a lifetime ago. Slowly I reached out. My fingers closed around the grip. It was heavier than I expected, more real. I lifted it, tested the weight, imagined pointing it at another human being, imagined pulling the trigger. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else: power, choice, control. I set the gun back down carefully. Tomorrow, William would walk into war for me. And if it came to it, if he needed me, I wouldn't hesitate. Not anymore. The warehouse district was a graveyard of industry. Rusted cranes silhouetted against a black sky, snow falling in thick curtains that muffled sound. The meeting site sat at the end of Pier 53, an abandoned processing facility where the East River lapped against rotting pylons. Perfect killing ground. William's SUV pulled up beside two others, headlights cutting through the snow. Marco and 8 soldiers fanned out, weapons concealed but ready. William stepped out last, his coat collar turned up against the cold, his injured shoulder aching beneath layers of Kevlar. Julie emerged from the second vehicle. She looked terrified, fragile, every inch the victim being handed over to save her protector's empire. The performance was flawless, except for the micro-tracker embedded in her coat lining and the fact that she knew exactly where William's sniper team was positioned on the crane overhead. "You okay?" William asked quietly. "No," her voice shook. "But I'll survive." "Yes, you will." He squeezed her hand once, briefly before releasing it. "Remember the plan. No matter what happens, you stay behind me." 3 black Mercedes pulled up, doors opened. Vincenzo Russo stepped out. The old man was exactly that, old, 70 if he was a day, with silver hair and a face carved from spite and decades of violence. But his eyes were sharp, predatory. The eyes of a man who'd built an empire on the bones of his enemies. Dante emerged beside him, the scar through his eyebrow visible even in the dim light. He smiled when he saw Julie. That same cruel, jagged smile from the warehouse. "Cantrell." Vincenzo's voice was gravel and smoke. "You came. You asked for a meeting." William stopped 10 feet away, Julie positioned slightly behind him. "Here I am." "And you brought her." Vincenzo's gaze slid to Julie like a snake eyeing prey. "The little bird who saw too much." "The woman you terrorized in my territory," William corrected. "Without permission, without respect. My son was conducting family business. On my docks." William's voice hardened. "That's a violation. You know it. I know it. This meeting is a courtesy I don't owe you." Dante stepped forward, cocky. "A courtesy? You started a war over some random—" "Careful." William's eyes went glacial. "Choose your next words very carefully." Vincenzo raised a hand, silencing his son. "Let's not pretend this is about territory or respect. You want her. I want her. Let's negotiate like civilized men." "What are you offering?" "Safe passage. For both of you." Vincenzo smiled, showing yellow teeth. "Give me the girl. Walk away. We forget this entire incident. No war, no bodies. Peace." William appeared to consider it. "And if I refuse?" "Then we take her. And you." Vincenzo's smile widened. Did you really think I'd come here without insurance? Lights flared. Brilliant, blinding. Floodlights mounted on the surrounding buildings ignited, revealing 24 armed men positioned on rooftops, behind containers, in sniper nests. William's 8 soldiers were outnumbered 3-1. The trap had been sprung, but not the one Vincenzo thought. My heart stopped. The lights, the guns, the men. It was the penthouse attack all over again. William had walked into an ambush. Because of me. But William didn't look surprised. His hand moved in a subtle gesture. Down, then left. The world exploded. Gunfire erupted from the crane. William's hidden sniper team, not compromised, not betrayed, cut down 3 of Russo's rooftop gunmen before they could fire. Smoke grenades detonated, flooding the pier with thick gray clouds. Chaos. William's men moved like ghosts, trained and brutal. Marco appeared at my side, shoving me behind a shipping container as bullets chewed through metal and wood. I pressed against the cold steel, breathing snow and cordite, watching shadows fight and die in the murk. Then I saw him. Dante. He moved through the smoke like a predator, gun raised, tracking someone. Following someone. Following William. My blood turned to ice. William was pinned down 20 feet away, returning fire against 2 Russo soldiers. He didn't see Dante flanking him, didn't see the gun barrel rising, aiming at his head. Nobody else saw either. Marco was engaged. The other soldiers were fighting their own battles. It was just me, and the gun William had given me, heavy and cold against my hip. No one's coming to save him. Only you. I moved without thinking. My hand closed around the grip. I stepped out from cover. The world slowed to crystalline clarity, Dante's finger tightening on the trigger. William turning, recognizing the danger too late, my arm raising. Both hands on the grip like they'd taught us in the one self-defense class I'd taken sophomore year. I pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked through my arms. The shot went wide, hit Dante's shoulder instead of center mass. He spun, snarling, his gun swinging toward me. I fired again, and again, and again. One shot hit his chest. He staggered. His gun clattered away, but he didn't go down. He charged. Pure animal rage propelling him forward even as blood poured from the wounds. His hands reached for my throat. I pulled the trigger one more time. Point blank. Dante Russo dropped. William reached Julie in 3 strides, his ears ringing from gunfire, his shoulder screaming. She stood over Dante's body, the gun still raised, her hands shaking violently. Julie! He pulled her arms down gently. It's over. You're okay. I shot him. Her voice was hollow. I killed him. You saved me. William took the gun from her trembling fingers, replacing it with his own hand. You saved my life. Around them, the firefight was ending. The smoke cleared to reveal bodies, mostly Russo soldiers, some of William's men. Vincenzo stood alone near his Mercedes, his guards dead or fled, staring at his son's corpse with something that might have been grief. William kept hold of Julie's hand as he walked toward the old man. His soldiers formed a perimeter. Marco covered them from behind. Your son, William said, his voice carrying across the killing ground, put his hands on an innocent woman, terrorized her, hunted her through my city, nearly killed her. He stopped 5 feet from Vincenzo. And when I protected her, when I did what any man with honor would do, he came into my home and tried to take her by force. Vincenzo's face was gray, broken. He was my son. He was a rabid dog. William raised his gun, aiming at the old man's chest. You asked who hurt her. He did. William's finger tightened on the trigger. Now he dies. He's already dead, Vincenzo whispered. No. William lowered the gun slightly. I mean he dies all the way. His name, his legacy, everything. He looked the old man in the eye. You have a choice. Disappear. Tonight. Take what's left of your family and vanish. Retire to Florida or Sicily or hell for all I care. But you leave New York. Forever. And if I refuse? Then you join your son. William's voice went deadly soft. And everyone you love joins him too. Children, grandchildren, everyone. The silence stretched. Snow continued to fall, covering the blood in pristine white. We're done, Vincenzo said finally. Defeated, destroyed. The Russos are done. He turned and walked away. Into the snow. Into nothing. William watched until the Mercedes disappeared. Then he holstered his weapon and turned to Julie. She stood where he'd left her, staring at her blood-stained hands, shaking, barely breathing. Do you regret it? William asked quietly. Julie looked up. Her eyes were clear, hard, changed. I regret not shooting him sooner. In the distance, sirens wailed. William took her hand, still trembling, still warm with another man's death, and laced their fingers together. Let's go home, he said. They walked through the carnage, through the snow, through the end of one life, and the blood-soaked beginning of another, together. If you felt that moment, if you understood why Julie had no regrets, then you're exactly where you belong. This family gets it. We understand that sometimes love isn't soft, it's survival. Hit subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, would you have pulled the trigger? Would you have become dangerous for someone you love? Let me know you're here. We're almost home. Spring came to New York like a promise kept. The city thawed, cherry blossoms bloomed in Central Park, and the Russo Empire crumbled into memory. Vincenzo disappeared to some villa in Sicily, his remaining lieutenants either absorbed into William's organization or scattered to other cities where their names meant nothing. The war was over. We'd won. But victory tasted nothing like I'd imagined. I stood in William's study, our study now, applying the final strokes of varnish to his mother's restored painting. 6 months of careful work had brought it back from ruin. The landscape glowed with renewed color, the water damage erased, the cracked canvas made whole. Fixing broken things. Still what I did best. Beautiful. I turned. William leaned against the doorframe, watching me with those hazel eyes that still made my breath catch. He'd changed too these past months. Quieter, more deliberate. The violence hadn't vanished. Men like him never left that world entirely. But he'd diversified. Legitimate businesses, real estate, investments that didn't require bodies in the river. The scar on his shoulder remained, a puckered reminder of the night he'd taken a bullet for me. Sometimes I traced it in the dark, grateful and guilty in equal measure. It's finished, I said, setting down the brush. What do you think? William crossed the room, studying the painting with genuine appreciation. She would have loved it, would have loved you. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. You brought it back to life. That's what restoration is, taking something broken and making it beautiful again. Is that what you did to me? His voice held amusement and something deeper, vulnerability he only showed in private moments like this. I turned in his arms. You were never broken, William. Just unfinished. He kissed me then, slow, deep, the kind of kiss that still carried the desperation of two people who'd survived hell to find each other. My phone buzzed, a reminder. I pulled back reluctantly. We need to go. I have class in an hour. Skip it. His hands tightened on my waist. Stay here. Let me convince you. I have a final presentation. I can't skip. I kissed him again, quick. Besides, you have a meeting with the Planning Commission about the waterfront development. Legitimate business is boring. Legitimate business doesn't get you shot. Fair point. He released me with obvious reluctance. Marco will drive you. I can take the subway. Humor me. His expression turned serious. Please. I relented. Some battles weren't worth fighting. And the truth was, the city felt safer with Marco's quiet presence shadowing me. Not because of lingering danger, the Russos were gone, but because letting William protect me had become as natural as breathing. We'd both changed. Him into something almost human, me into something almost dangerous. Equal footing, earned in blood. "Why here?" I asked, as William led me through the main concourse, our fingers laced together. "Because it's where we began." He stopped beneath the four-faced clock, in the exact spot where I'd fallen into his arms 6 months and a lifetime ago. "I wanted to see it with you. Now. When we're not running." I looked around. The Christmas decorations were gone, replaced by spring flowers and Easter displays. Commuters rushed past, oblivious. No one stared. No one whispered William's name. We were just another couple in the crowd. Invisible. Normal. Free. "I was so terrified," I whispered, remembering. "I thought I was going to die on this floor." "You didn't." William pulled me closer. "You fell. I caught you. Everything changed. Do you ever regret it? Catching me?" "Every single day." At my sharp look, he smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his severe features into something almost boyish. "I regret that you had to go through hell because of me. I regret the violence you witnessed. I regret that you had to pull a trigger and live with that weight." He cupped my face. "But regret catching you? Protecting you? Loving you?" He shook his head. "Never." My throat tightened. "Being with you should scare me. You're still William Cantrell, the king of the city, the man people cross themselves over." "Does it? Scare you?" I thought about it. Really thought. About the penthouse attack. The safe house. Elias's execution. The warehouse where I'd shot Dante Russo and watched him die. About all the darkness I'd witnessed, and the darkness I'd become part of. "No," I said finally. "The only thing that scares me now is losing you." Something fierce and possessive flared in William's eyes. He kissed me right there, in the middle of Grand Central Terminal, in front of hundreds of strangers who had no idea they were watching the king claim his queen. I kissed him back, pouring 6 months of survival and love and transformation into it. We'd both been broken things, both been restored by blood and choice, and the impossible fact that sometimes monsters save you, and sometimes saints let you fall. When we finally broke apart, breathless and grinning like idiots, William's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shifting to something thoughtful. "What is it?" "Nothing urgent." He pocketed the phone, but I'd seen the notification. New power consolidating in the Bronx. Possible territorial challenge. The game never really ended. The throne always needed defending, but this time, he wouldn't defend it alone. "Let's go home," William said, taking my hand again. We walked through the terminal together, past the clock where I'd fallen, past the spot where my blood had stained marble, past the place where my old life had died and this strange, violent, beautiful new one had begun. Outside, snow had started to fall, early spring snow, unexpected and perfect. I tilted my face up, letting it kiss my cheeks, feeling William's solid presence beside me. Whatever came next, whatever threats emerged from the shadows, whatever battles needed fighting, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wouldn't be facing it alone. And neither would he. We'd fallen into each other's arms in the chaos of Grand Central. We'd survived betrayal and bullets and the blood-soaked reality of his world. We'd been broken and restored, lost and found, prey and predator, until the lines blurred into something neither of us could define, but both of us refused to surrender. I was Julie Gallegos, art student, survivor, the woman who'd brought the king to his knees without even trying, and he was William Cantrell, Dawn, protector, the monster who'd shown me that sometimes the devil catches you when you fall. Together we were something else entirely, something dangerous, something beautiful, something worth fighting for. Who hurt you? He'd asked that first night, covered in my blood. Now, 6 months later, as snow fell over Manhattan and our hands remained intertwined, I finally had an answer. No one. Not anymore.